Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos, has announced sweeping bans on the motorbike taxis plying its perilous roads. Now, the ban, which starts February 1st, covers numerous central districts and suburbs of the chaotic megacity of 20 million people and major highways and bridges across Lagos State. Now, the motorbike taxis and rickshaws are seen as a vital and sometimes hazardous way of many Lagos residents to negotiate the notorious go-slow traffic jams that clog the streets. And of course, joining me in the studio to react to this development is ADETAYO BAMIDURO, Chief Executive Officer of Max.ng.
Thank you very
Tayo,
much.
it's good to have you with us. Good morning.
Glad to be here. Good morning.
All right, let's start with the obvious now. And I want a clarification on this, whether it's a ban or a restriction of commercial bikes on certain Lagos routes. Are companies like yours affected, and how would you describe this development?
Sure, absolutely. So on 27th of January, the government, through one of its social media handles, announced a ban in, I think, about 6 local government areas of Lagos and about 21 local councils across the state. Okay. Now, the local governments that were mentioned are the critical commercial nerve centers of Lagos, right? So essentially, even though technically motorcycles can still operate in Lagos, they can operate in the places where they can make the most money. Now, does it affect us? When I say us, I mean the formal motorcycle taxi hailing companies that are put in place the highest level, highest standards possible to ensure safety of lives, of security, and of property. So in a clarification that was requested online via social media channels from the government, the response was that it does extend to companies like ours as well in the regions that were mentioned. How do we feel about this? We think that this is not going to be effective. We think that this would not even achieve the objective that the government really has in mind. So let's put the objective on the table. What is the objective? Concern for lives, concern for safety, concern for security. A bunch of statistics were thrown up about the number of accidents that have happened over the last few years. And while those are true, we have to look at this holistically, right? The challenge is that the regulation that was put in place has not been fully enforced. A very comprehensive regulatory framework has not been developed for this industry, which is what companies like ours have been advocating for over the last 1 year. And we've been having very close engagements with some key government officials, showing them the framework, the roadmap, and even recommending regulatory frameworks to regulate the activities of motorcycle and tricycle operators in the state.
That engagement, very good. Yeah. What has been the response of the government on the recommendations you made, stakeholders such as you?
So initially we did meet with, the government did listen to us, and we really did appreciate that. But over the last couple of weeks, conversations have sort of like stopped, and it seems that the other concerns have been raised. However, we continue to reiterate that beyond the security and the safety concerns is also the economic impact that this would have. True. So when you look at Nigeria today, just last year, Nigeria today has the largest number of poor people in the world. We have more poor people than China, we have more poor people than India, we have more poor people than Bangladesh, right? So when you look at an industry that affects close to 800,000 operators in Lagos State, each of which has an average number of dependents of about 4 to 5, we are looking at easily 4 million Lagosians impacted by this decision. This decision is likely to sentence these people into absolute abject poverty. So when we look at the question and the challenge of security today, will this decision likely escalate insecurity? Because the reality is when people don't have jobs, when people don't have a means of income anymore, what happens, then the next thing they probably want to start considering is crime, right? So we have to look at the unintended effects of the decisions that are taken. We are strongly confident that the government will reevaluate this decision and bring key stakeholders back to the table and figure out the best way to enforce this regulation, and at the same time make sure that the economic impact is not felt by the underprivileged in Lagos.
Very good, Tayo. Now, if you remember a few years ago, under the administration of the erstwhile governor, now Minister of Works, Babátúndé Fáṣọlá, there was a restriction.
Yes.
It wasn't a total ban,
yes.
Especially on the highways, as it were. So how would you compare between what we had then and this one? Because I think there was even a period of engagement, although ride-hailing apps were not available at that point in time. But at least there was that intense negotiations between the riders, stakeholders, to at least have some form of mutual purpose.
Absolutely.
And then there was the issue of safety and security. Riders were being made to wear helmets as well as their passengers, of which your companies are also,
100% compliant.
So What is the issue here?
Well, it's the exact same question that we're asking too. In 2012, when that law was promulgated by the then Governor Fashola, right now, this law was called the 2018 Transport Sector Reform Law. Was made last year, 2 years ago. I beg your pardon. In 2018, and in that law, actually, we are 100% compliant with that law. Which is also why we are surprised, that today the government has more tools, more technologies available, more companies available to help them implement a regime that meets all their needs. So we are also expressing total surprise at why, the government hasn't called us to the table to see how we can assist as citizens of this country and also as responsible investors and companies to help bring a workable solution that is win-win for both the government and also for the people.
Indeed. But was there a clear-cut reason for the government's move, as it were, and were you communicated to that effect?
So we have not been officially communicated with in any regard. Not us at Max, not any of the other two motorcycle hailing companies that we are very much in contact with. So this decision was taken independent of consultation with us.
Now, let's talk about all the other issues. Now, the motorbike ride-hailing concept has come of age, as it were, especially in Lagos State. How would you describe the business climate regarding the services you render? Yes, we have a setback now, as it were, but not wholly. So what's your thoughts on that?
Fantastic. So we're all social enterprises. We're not just for-profit only businesses. So on the one hand, yes, we are building these companies to ultimately, at the end of the day, maybe 5-10 years from now, return some level of profit to the investors and shareholders. But equally or even more important is the social impact of what we are doing. So what is the impact potentially on our business, if this ban isn't reversed? Well, I would just say we'll continue to engage. A company like ours is also already present in 4 other cities in Nigeria. Okay. We've been very well embraced by the Kano State government. We're operational there today. We're operational in 2 other states in southwestern Nigeria. And we have a roadmap to deliver impact across all of Nigeria. So this, of course, is a challenging period for us. It's a traumatic period for us. It's a traumatic period for our investors. We've assembled elite investors from across the globe, from the United States, from Europe, from Japan, and from other parts of Africa. So right now they are also spooked, and they're concerned whether, indeed Lagos or whether Nigeria is actually ready for foreign direct investment, or ready for innovation, or ready for technology investments, right? So there are other far-reaching implications of decisions like this beyond even just our industry. How do we feel? We feel really bad. We're actually a bit traumatized by this experience. But we will continue to provide, logistics and mobility services to our Nigerians and to Africans as much as we can.
And of course, there's always a silver lining when it comes to such actions like the government just took. And of course, it's interesting you mentioned the fact that you're expanding, which is an option out of this. So in view of all of this, how competitive is the motorbike tax initiative? We're seeing also an emergence of new entrants as well. So how healthy is this development for business?
It's great. Competition is extremely important. It's important for the people because the people then get more value, right? Competition is also even important for the companies themselves, because our competitors help each other to do better, right? So we think that the opportunity is very significant. However, it's also hard, right? Changing an existing culture, bringing in safety, investing a lot of money, a lot of resources, building the right technology that would drive efficiency and transparency in this space is not a trivial venture. We've been on this for close to 5 years now, working extremely hard, bringing on board partners globally, and also even selling Nigeria. Selling Nigeria to investors all around the world can be quite hard, but we've successfully done that. So. Is the opportunity huge? Yes, it is huge, right? But is it easy? Absolutely not.
Indeed, I can imagine just business climate in Nigeria, as it were. Now, some commercial bike companies are also delving into maritime sector, as it were, in terms of boat taxis, as it were. So, What do you make of that development? Or are there any plans for your company as well? To all the businesses regarding that?
Our mission, is Max's tagline is powering Africa's forward movement, right? So we're not just restricted to motorcycle taxis or tricycles. At some point, when the time is right, when the investment climate is right, because even in water transportation, there are reforms that are needed as well.
That's a good way to go, making optimal use of the waterways, which has been neglected for some time now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Lagos is, if you go to cities like Amsterdam, they have canals all over the whole place, right? People can move around quite easily. Same for New York and other coastal cities. So there's absolutely no reason why Lagos should also not maximize this natural resource. But of course, there are other considerations. There's considerations around the cost of equipment, there's regulation, there's the infrastructure required for operators as well, and also there's the economics for this as well, right? So some of the questions that have been asked are questions around the economic viability. So when you look at the amount of investment that's required to be made, and you look at the ability to pay by majority of Lagosians, there's still a little bit of a mismatch in there, right? Unless, of course, the government steps in and introduces subsidies or allows operators to bring in equipment without, paying duties and all kinds of incentives that can be provided for operators to make that investment. But until that is done, you might not see an aggressive push into water-based transportation, which Lagos absolutely needs. But hopefully, at both the federal and the state level, the changes that are required to encourage investments can be made.
Interesting. Now, on the long term, what's your outlook for the commercial bike hailing concept, and especially in a bustling city like Lagos and beyond, as it were?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it has come here to stay. Lagos is not an island, right? But it's not the only city in the world.
Indeed.
Right? Of course, Lagos is an island, in the natural sense of that word. You look at cities like countries like Rwanda, Kigali. Rwanda today is seen as one of the most forward-thinking nations in Africa. And they have commercial motorcycle taxis all over the whole place. Indeed. But the thing is that it has been effectively regulated. When you look at other countries that are comparable to Nigeria as well, even outside of Africa, like Indonesia, like Bangladesh, motorcycle hailing companies have come to stay. One of the prides of Indonesia today is a company called Gojek. And that company essentially has become a unicorn valued at, close to $10 billion today. Right, and they achieve that, by leveraging motorcycle taxis to deliver inclusion to the people of Indonesia. So for us, the question is why can't we do that in Nigeria as well?
Good question there. Homegrown solutions to homegrown problems, as it were.
100%.
All right, ADETAYO BAMIDURO, CEO Max.ng. A pleasure having you on the show. It's good to have you.